Delete. She didn't even blink when she said it. Just leaned over, clicked twice, and erased everything I'd worked on for nearly 3 months, in front of the entire boardroom. 50 eyes. A pause projector. An open-mouthed intern holding his iced latte like it was the last piece of comfort left in the world. "This report is garbage," she added, loud enough to echo. "We're not presenting this." Then she smiled at the CEO like she hadn't just gutted me in public. I didn't move. I didn't argue. I didn't even breathe. I just sat there, hands still hovering near the keyboard, like maybe I could reverse time by staying perfectly still. Nobody said a word. Not one voice in that room stood up for me, except for the voice in my pocket. Buzz. A text popped up on my screen like a rescue boat in a hurricane. "We're still good for that offer. $700,000. You'd lead the risk division. Full freedom." It was from someone I'd barely remembered, an exec from a private firm in Denver I met once at a risk summit. We'd talked for 15 minutes. I guess it stuck. And in that moment, in front of my wife. Yes, my wife. The same woman who had just publicly humiliated me like a disposable contractor. I did the one thing I never thought I had in me. I smiled. Then I typed back, "Accepting your $700,000 offer. I'm in." I hit send before she even finished pitching her version of my work. She didn't know. Not yet. But that one click didn't just end a presentation. It started something she wouldn't be able to delete. Not from her career. Not from our marriage. Not from what I was about to uncover. Because once I walked out of that room, I found a file she hadn't deleted. And in it was the truth that changed everything. I didn't say a word during the rest of her presentation. I sat there, dead silent, watching her parade around with my skeleton of a project now dressed in glitter and buzzwords. She was confident, charming, magnetic, the kind of person who could make a dog food pitch sound like a revolution. And she was loving every second of it. Not one person in the room seemed to remember I even existed. I was erased, just like my report. But here's the thing. You don't humiliate someone like that. Not someone who's been quietly watching for years, without consequences. I walked out of that room like nothing happened. No shouting match. No dramatic speech. Just a polite smile to the receptionist and a quiet ride down the elevator. But while my body was calm, my mind was clawing through every memory like a crime scene. Something about her confidence. It wasn't just ego. It was certainty. She wasn't worried about fallout. About me snapping. About anyone challenging her. She knew no one would, especially not me. And that's what started to eat at me. Because she was right. I was that guy, the one who let things go. The guy who forgave bad days that lasted entire seasons. The guy who explained away cruel comments as tough love and convinced himself that sarcasm was just her love language. But not this time. I went home early that day. She wasn't expecting me. The house was too quiet. That kind of suspicious quiet where something feels out of place, but you can't quite name it. I went straight to the office where we shared a desktop. She used it way more than I did, mostly for work overflow and scheduling. But that day, I noticed something odd. The trash bin was empty. Not weird in itself, except the entire desktop was also clean. No personal folders. No downloaded files. Not even browser history. And that was weird. Maisie never deleted anything. She hoarded drafts like trophies. Even old invoices from her freelance days were still in folders from 2017. She used to joke she had digital trust issues. So I did what any paranoid man who just got publicly executed by his own wife would do. I opened the backup drive. I never told her the desktop synced to my personal cloud. It was automatic. One of those quiet little habits I picked up years ago after she accidentally wiped our vacation photos. She'd forgotten about it. I hadn't. And in that cloud, buried under folders labeled with boring names like invoices_2022 and reference docs, I found a file she hadn't meant to save. It was called Break the Contract. PDF. My stomach turned. I clicked. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage began to unravel. The document was a legal memo, drafted by a boutique law firm downtown. It outlined precise steps on how to end a joint consulting agreement, including clauses about intellectual property separation, public statements, and reputational preservation. In short, how to cut someone out of their own work without getting sued. The report wasn't about a client. It was about me. There was a clause with my full name in it. And that's when I knew. She hadn't just embarrassed me for fun. She had planned it. I sat there staring at the document like it might start rewriting itself if I blinked hard enough. My name was listed next to a project title, Cognix Risk Infrastructure Proposal, which was exactly the framework I had designed, word for word. But what really made my blood run cold wasn't the outline, or even the dry legal phrasing. It was the second name, Camden Weller. Not a name you hear every day, but I knew it. Everyone did, especially in our industry. Camden was a golden boy in corporate strategy circles. He consulted for a Fortune 50 by age 27. Rumor was he never failed a pitch. Ever. I'd met him once, briefly, just long enough for him to say, "You look like a guy who wears seatbelts even in parked cars." He said it like it was a joke, but I felt the sting for weeks. So did Maisie. She laughed so hard at that line. She saved it in her phone under his name. At the time, I didn't think much of it. She had hundreds of little notes like that. Things people said. Things she planned to use. Writers collect words, she once told me. Now, I wasn't sure if she collected him. The document detailed a plan to split the proposal in two, front-facing creative going to her and Camden, back-end architecture, my part, quietly reassigned under his name. In exchange, the firm would get an exclusive contract with a government agency that had shown early interest in my risk model. The same one I pitched to Maisie a year ago over dinner, napkin sketches and all. I scrolled further. There were timelines, call logs, even suggestions for how to gradually phase me out of public view. Position him as technical support, not strategic originator. That line punched me harder than any insult ever could. They weren't just cutting me out of a project, they were erasing me from the idea. And this wasn't a worst-case draft. It was marked, final review, sign-off complete. Signed by Camden. And Maisie. It was dated 2 days before the meeting where she deleted my report. I can't explain what it feels like to realize someone you've shared your life with, your dinners, your bed, your dumb Netflix queue, was negotiating your replacement behind your back. I sat in that chair, lights off, screen glowing. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. All I felt was the slow sinking certainty that I'd been played. Not just cheated. Played. And still, I thought, maybe there's an explanation. Maybe this is about business. Maybe they're just using his name for leverage. That's how far gone I was. How addicted I'd become to justifying her cruelty. But then I opened her message history. She never logged out of her desktop WhatsApp. I clicked without thinking. It opened instantly. And the first chat at the top? Camden briefcase fire. I shouldn't have clicked. I know that. But I did. And the first message I saw was from the night before the pitch. He'll never see it coming. I'll smile, hit delete, and that's that. Just like we planned. No emojis. No LOLs. Just cold. Efficient. Surgical. She didn't just plan the ambush. She enjoyed it. That night, I didn't go to bed. I sat in the dim glow of the office, the hum of the desktop fan buzzing like static in my skull. I must have read their messages a dozen times. The way they casually plotted my professional execution, with inside jokes and little nicknames like Code Boy and Clipboard Husband, turned my stomach. There were laughing gifs, memes, even a countdown she'd sent him. T-minus 12 hours till the delete show smiling face with horns. It was all there. Cold. Calculated. Intimate. And yet, I didn't confront her. Not then. I heard her footsteps around 1 a.m. That light, barefoot shuffle she did when she thought I was asleep. She didn't come to the office. Just went to the kitchen, got a glass of water, and tiptoed back to the bedroom. Like nothing happened. Like the woman I just read conspiring against me wasn't the same one now snoring softly under my roof. I stayed in the chair until sunrise, breathing through the rage. And by morning, I made a decision. No confrontation, no blow-up. She thrived in chaos. That was her terrain. Yelling matches, tearful gaslighting, spinning things until I was the problem. I'd been through that loop enough times to recognize the trap. So instead, I played dumb. I got dressed, made coffee, kissed her on the cheek like nothing had changed. And for the first time in years, she looked surprised by me. Maybe she expected silence and sulking. But I smiled, asked about her day, even offered to drive her to work. She declined, of course. Said she had a stand-up with Camden. Perfect. While she was out, I backed up everything. I transferred every chat, every file, every timestamp to a hidden drive I labeled tax docs. Then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I logged into the security system. We'd installed cameras back during the pandemic, mostly for package theft. but one of them was still active in the home office. It had audio too. I checked the archive, fast-forwarded to 2 nights ago, and there it was. The conversation. She was pacing. On speakerphone. Camden's voice, arrogant as ever, said, "Just make sure he doesn't make a scene. You said he folds easy." Maisie laughed. "Please. Emery's allergic to confrontation. He'll go sulk in a spreadsheet and call it coping." Camden. "Still, if he tries to pull something, I've got our bases covered. Legal said we're bulletproof." Maisie, "He won't. He's not built like that. He still thinks I love him." Silence. Then they both started laughing. That was it. The breaking point. Not the messages, not the memo. That. Not because she betrayed me. I could almost stomach that. But because she was so sure I'd do nothing. So sure I was weak. Predictable. Safe. She had no idea I'd already accepted a $700,000 offer to walk away from the company that let her destroy me in a boardroom. She didn't know I'd been quietly documenting everything, even her keystrokes. She didn't know I was building something much bigger than a revenge fantasy. I was building a timeline. A case. And if she thought I was the one being erased, she was about to learn what it felt like to be overwritten. 3 days passed. 3 entire days of pretending I didn't know a damn thing. Just smiles, polite dinners, and empty small talk while she texted Camden under the table. I counted. 11 texts during one meal. At one point she even laughed and showed me a meme, like she hadn't just typed "he still doesn't suspect a thing" upside down face 3 seconds earlier. But I wasn't stewing anymore. I was calculating. You see, the company where Maisie and I both consulted, a mid-sized but well-funded firm named Caldrex, had been in the middle of a corporate shakeup. Their CEO, Jonah Remley, had recently stepped back after a family emergency, and his second-in-command, a sharp but overlooked woman named Yara Duval, had stepped in temporarily. I'd only met her once, months ago during a data audit, but she remembered me. More importantly, she respected clean work. She hated politics. And I knew, from a single LinkedIn post buried under a wave of corporate fluff, that she was about to take full control. So I reached out. Not through my name. No. I created a dummy profile and submitted a full ethics report to Caldrex's internal compliance email, anonymously. Inside, every chat log, every video clip, a complete timeline of how Maisie and Camden had conspired to misappropriate the proposal, forge authorship, misrepresent the internal legal sign-off, and manipulate the leadership's perception of who did what. You see, what they hadn't considered was the timing. The project hadn't launched yet. The money hadn't moved. And that meant there was still time to burn the whole thing down, legally, before it went live. All I needed to do was twist the right screw. So I waited. And then came the invite. Maisie burst into the house Friday night with her heels in one hand and her phone in the other, glowing like she'd won the lottery. "Yara wants to meet me Monday," she said, grinning. "One-on-one. She said my work's the most exciting she's seen since Jonah left." I smiled. "That's amazing." She didn't notice I was gripping my glass so hard my knuckles went white. That weekend, I played the doting husband. I made breakfast, rubbed her back, gassed up her car while she was in the salon, all while she prepped for a meeting that I knew would be the beginning of her unraveling. Then Monday came, and I asked one small thing. "Do you want me to drive you to your meeting? You seem nervous." She hesitated. For the first time, she actually looked unsure. "Why are you being so nice all of a sudden?" she asked. I tilted my head. "Because you're my wife. Because I believe in you." She stared at me for a moment, then shrugged. "Sure. Drop me off." Perfect. We got there early. I walked her to the building, held the door, watched her disappear down the marble hallway like a queen headed to her coronation. I didn't follow, because I had somewhere else to be. A different floor. A different meeting. 10 minutes later, I shook Yara Duval's hand in a private conference room on the 6th floor. The one where internal strategy reviews were held. She didn't smile, just motioned for me to sit. "You wrote that report?" she asked. No point pretending now. She knew. I did. She opened her laptop and spun it around. It displayed a paused security video from our home office. Maisie pacing, Camden on speaker, plotting the pitch sabotage. "You have more of this?" I nodded. "Ours." She didn't ask how I got it. She didn't care. All she said was, "If what you're saying holds, you're about to walk out of this building with a whole lot more leverage than you came in with." And at that moment, I realized something terrifying. Maisie wasn't the only one playing chess. Yara had plans of her own, and she'd just found the perfect weapon. I was still in the building when it happened. Maisie's meeting with Yara had been scheduled for 9:30. By 9:47, the floor above me had gone so quiet it felt like a hospital. The kind of silence that only happens when someone important says something no one expected. I didn't need to be in the room to know exactly what that was. Yara didn't just confront her. She unveiled her. And Yara wasn't dramatic. She was surgical. She would have calmly slid every piece of evidence across the table like puzzle pieces falling into place. Each message, each audio recording, each signed memo, every timestamp, and that one damning video of Maisie smirking while promising to delete him in real time. That would have been the final nail. At 10:03, Maisie texted me, "Call me. Now." I didn't. Instead, I left the building and sat in the car for 20 minutes, listening to a lo-fi playlist I hadn't touched in years. I needed silence, breathing space, because as much as I had fantasized about this moment, I couldn't ignore the bitterness curling in my stomach. I had spent years loving her. Blindly, defensively. I excused the sarcasm, the distance, the cold shoulder she gave me after every minor success I dared to celebrate. I even convinced myself that her flirtations with Camden were harmless. That maybe I wasn't enough, not because she said it, but because I believed it first. But now, the narrative had reversed. Her throne was cracking, and I wasn't just the betrayed husband anymore. I was the one pulling the strings. By noon, Yara called me back into her office. She didn't waste time. She's suspended from all active projects, she said flatly. Camden's being placed under immediate review. The board has been briefed. Your original proposal, your real proposal, will be reassessed under your name. You'll receive full credit, and if you're willing, we want you to stay on as lead consultant for the restructure. It should have felt like victory, but I didn't smile. I just asked, "Does she know I gave you everything?" Yara leaned back. She knows someone did, but I didn't tell her who. I prefer that kind of reveal. Happens organically. And it did. That night, Maisie came home before sunset for the first time in months. No blazer, no laptop, just her keys and a half-empty iced coffee she kept refilling with melted ice like she didn't want to finish it. She didn't say a word when she came in, just went straight to the kitchen and stood there like she forgot why she walked in. Finally, she asked, "Did you know?" I didn't answer. She turned to face me, and for the first time in all our years, she didn't look composed. She looked scared. She started, but stopped. Camden's disappeared. He's not answering anyone. Yara froze our access. And I think they're going to sue us. I still said nothing. That silence. It broke her. Her voice cracked. "Emery, you have to tell me if you were behind this." And then I saw it. The flicker of fear in her eyes slowly turning to rage. "You set me up," she whispered. "You little coward. You waited. You smiled through it all. Like some pathetic puppy licking my hand while I stood. For once, I didn't shrink. You deleted me," I said quietly. But I backed myself up. She opened her mouth. Closed it. The silence stretched like a blade between us. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out. She didn't ask where I was going. She didn't ask if I was coming with her. Because for the first time in our marriage, she didn't hold the power. The house was quiet for the next 3 days. Maisie stayed in a hotel downtown. I knew because she left the receipt on the dresser like some kind of passive-aggressive breadcrumb trail. The way she moved through guilt was never direct. There were no apologies. Just theatrical silences and emotional Morse code I was always expected to decode. But this time, I didn't bite. I stayed home. I worked remotely. I slept, finally. But something strange happened by the 4th day. The high I felt after pulling the rug out from under her began to fade. That cold satisfaction, that secret power, it didn't last. I started waking up with a pit in my stomach. Not because I regretted exposing her, I didn't, but because something inside me felt unfinished. And then the calls started. Not from her. From people who shouldn't have my number. Bloggers. Low-tier business gossip columnists. One woman from a podcast called Corporate Karma. Apparently, Camden had leaked a twisted version of the story, painting himself and Maisie as visionaries who were sabotaged by a jealous, disgruntled ex-consultant who couldn't handle being outshined. He gave them my name. And suddenly, everything turned. The internet did what it does, twisted, speculated, inflated. My LinkedIn inbox became a war zone. Some called me brave. Others called me toxic. A few told me to man up, and stop crying on corporate time. One person suggested I should have just taken the L and built something new quietly, like a real man. And that's when it hit me. I was winning and still being erased. Maisie finally texted again that night. A long block of text, clearly written and rewritten half a dozen times. She asked if I'd be willing to make a joint statement. Something calm, civil. To stop the bleeding, she wrote. I stared at the message for nearly an hour. It was vintage Maisie, not regret, not love, not even decency. Just optics. But a part of me still wanted to respond. To meet her halfway. To believe there was a version of us that could go back, even just a few years, to when we laughed at burnt toast and danced in the living room at midnight. Back when we were on the same team, even if we were losing. So I did something stupid. I told her to meet me. Neutral ground. A quiet bar we used to like on Ashbury and Ninth. No lawyers. No fake smiles. Just us. She showed up looking exhausted. No makeup, hair tied back, hoodie instead of heels. I barely recognized her. And for a moment, it almost felt like we were two broken humans trying to find our way back to something soft. Almost. Until she opened with, "So what will it take for you to fix this?" Not "I'm sorry." Not "how are you?" Just "fix it." I leaned back in my seat, took a breath, and realized what she still didn't understand. "This isn't something to fix," I said. "This is something that broke because you kept stepping on it while telling me to hold it together." She rolled her eyes. "Emery, be serious. We both made mistakes." "No," I cut her off. "You made a choice. You called me weak, irrelevant. You plotted a public takedown for a cheap applause line. You turned me into a prop for your power play." She fell silent, and then whispered, "I didn't think you had it in you." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's the point, Maisie. You never did." I stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, didn't look back. That night, I started packing. Not just for me. For good. 2 weeks after I left, the house was sold. I didn't tell her. She came back from a weekend at her sister's and found a for sale sign on the lawn, and the locks changed. I'd handled everything through my lawyer. Clean. Legal. Undeniable. She texted me once that night. "You're being petty." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The irony. She never understood the full meaning behind what I told her in that bar. I backed myself up. She thought I meant files. Evidence. Data. But what I meant was me. The parts of me I'd buried for years. The quiet pride in my work. The confidence I'd handed over like a spare key, just to keep the peace. The dignity I traded for approval. I had all of it stored deep inside, waiting for a reason to reboot. And that moment? It came quietly, on a random Wednesday afternoon in the corner of a coffee shop 2 towns over, where I sat alone reviewing a contract for the Denver firm. The one that had offered me $700,000 and a clean slate. I was halfway through reading when someone asked if they could share the table. All the other spots were full. She was tall, not in a showy way, but grounded. Soft cardigan, no makeup, wireframe glasses, and a notebook filled with messy diagrams of something I didn't understand. We talked. About the coffee, the weather, then somehow about failure, about beginnings, about people who mistake cruelty for strength. Her name was Willa, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. We met again, and slowly, without pressure, without performance, she became the person I could sit beside without shrinking. She didn't try to fix me. She just made room. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fireworks. It was quiet safety. As for Maisie, her public statement came weeks later, vague, corporate, non-committal. She framed it as a creative disagreement and announced she was stepping away for reflection. Camden was nowhere in the post. Rumor was he took a consulting job overseas. The internet moved on within days. No one remembered her meme campaign. No one cared. But I kept building. Quietly. Deliberately. And this time for myself. Last month, I launched a platform under my own name. A hybrid data ethics and risk modeling consultancy. Not flashy. Not viral. But real. And mine. And just last week, a familiar name popped up in my inbox. Yara. She'd referred a government agency to me. "They need someone with backbone," she wrote. "Told them you've got a surplus." I didn't smile. I grinned. Because I finally understood. Maisie tried to delete me. But the best parts of who I was, the thoughtful ones, the quiet ones, the underestimated, dismissed, overruled parts, they were never gone. They were just waiting their turn. And now, It's my cursor on the screen, my slide on the projector, my hand on the keyboard, and no one's deleting me ever again.